Learn how to use the power of your mind and the power of your words to create peace, power, and prosperity in your one precious life. Discover your unique purpose on our planet and how you can best serve. So now, let's learn how we can be peaceful, powerful, and prosperous.
Good afternoon. This is Dr. Cynthia Clayton for Planetary Peace, Power, and Prosperity. And we are on Bold Brave TV, airing with several affiliates, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Facebook Live, and many more. Good vibrations. Oh well. Yep, the hippies got it right. It's all about aligning with the vibrations of oneness and wholeness that are ever present and co-creating a more coherent and harmonious existence. By conscious intention, we align with evolutionary purposes that flow toward higher and higher developments in the human being and in our experience. Today, we're going to talk about the evolutionary alchemy of Syntony, or how to get in the flow. Syntony is a personal and planetary flow state that when practiced yields a super coherent existence, one of complete harmony and oneness with all of life. Syntony is inspired by the holoflex theory of physicist David Bohm. Our special guest today operates on the cutting edge of science and spirituality. In fact, he integrates them. And he is Dr. Alexander Laszlo. Alexander Laszlo, PhD, is president of the Bertalanffy Center for the Study of Systems Science, research director at the Laszlo Institute for New Paradigm Research, co-founder and global collaborator of Global Education Futures, and founding member of the board of directors of the Social Systems Foundation. He is professor of systems science and curated emergence, author of over 100 journal, book, and encyclopedia publications, a 6th degree black belt in traditional Taekwondo, a world traveler involved in many think tanks. He makes his home in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and you can visit him, alexanderlaszlo.net, and check out what he's up to. He has a Syntony starter kit there you can get with a lot of short blurbs about Syntony articles. And I want to add a special note quickly here. I'm the author of a book, Compass of Hope, and it's the very best wisdom and practices from 45 visionary leaders, taking you on a playful journey to become a master of your monkey mind, learn to love yourself, create your desired reality, and how to be happy for no reason at all. It's a 400-page toolkit, and it develops the avatar mindset that we need to be successful co-creators of the new paradigm. And before composing this book, about mid-COVID, I reached out to many groups of change makers, and I asked this question: what does your heart want people to know more than anything else to bring them lasting peace, true happiness, to inspire and give them hope and direction and practices to use on their journey? The very first person who responded to that call for collaboration was Alexander Laszlo. He is one of my action heroes who shines his light wherever he can. So welcome, Professor Laszlo.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. What an honor and a pleasure to be here with you today and to be in dialogue about what is this flow state that helps cultivate the avatar mindset that you write about. And I think the work that I am involved in very much feeds that as a kind of a pathway in a set of practices that can help develop what you call the avatar mindset. And this is a great opportunity for us to be in conversation. So I'm very much looking forward to our time
Yeah,
together here today.
and I have enjoyed the conversations we've had in planning this, and perhaps, and can I just call you Alexander?
Please do. That's actually my name, so it
I
works.
know. So perhaps you could share with the viewers some experience or a transformational, a time something happened to you that you headed out on this journey, your hero's journey. Was there like
Hmm.
something that compelled you to do what you're doing?
Wow. Well, yeah, wonderful. Let's start with a little story then, a personal story. How I got into this, and all of this that we're talking about, just as context, is for those who have come across the work of this author, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. I can pronounce his name because he's Hungarian, and I have Hungarian ancestry, so I can say Csikszentmihalyi. Anyway, he wrote Flow, a psychology for the 21st century, and I've talked with him a little bit about this as well when he was alive. The idea of flow being a state of bliss, a state of complete alignment with that which is emerging. And it's very similar to this notion of syntony. Not quite the same, though, because flow is just this resonance tuning in to whatever is in the moment and finding that bliss state. It actually can be quite hedonistic. Whereas syntony, you are taking on the mantle of an evolutionary co-creator when you do that. So, okay, let me answer your question, Cynthia. You asked me what was an experience I had. So let me tell you about that. I think the first time I had this experience of this kind of a flow state that wasn't just the sense of bliss and of blissing out, which I could do when I was in my parents' home when I was a young boy. They live quite close to the Mediterranean. The summers, the Mediterranean Sea is warm, and so I remember floating in it and being in this floating. It's salt water, so your whole body can be held up without much motion, and there's this kind of a flow state in that when you're floating. It's beautiful and it's really connecting, and there's a sense of bliss as well in that. But that's not the story of Syntony. The story of Syntony also took place around those years when I was, let's say, 14 or so. And this particular experience was when my family, my mother, my father, and my brother, 5 years older than me, Chris Laszlo, when he and my parents were on our little boat, and it's really little boat. 4 of us is the maximum it could take. It's quite a good boat for just 2 people to go out on and tool around. So very small, 1 mast, and just these sails. And so we were all out there, the whole family, and it wasn't much wind until all of a sudden a gust came up. And we could see it on the beach blowing along. You could see the wave front of that gust of wind because it was blowing up the beach umbrellas and just tearing them out of their mooring in the sand. It's not too difficult, but we saw it coming, and when it hit the boat, my father, who was holding the tiller, had angled the boat, fortunately, away from the gust, not to the side. We'd have been blown over. But as it was, when it hit the boat, it it just rocketed us forward. And we had to let go of the mainsail so that it wouldn't pull us over. And it was like all of a sudden being on a speedboat. We went foof, and we just rode forward like that. I happened to have been standing in the boat. My parents and my brother were sitting, but I was standing by the mainsail, by the mast, and it was a good deck right there, and I was standing on that. And as the boat went up like this and went forward, I don't know, I just found my balance very easily, and I was just kind of surfing the moment, almost literally in that moment. But I caught the eyes of my mother, who was sitting there, and she was looking quite terrified as what was going on. It was, yeah, we could have tipped over, and who knows what would have happened. Somebody could have gotten hit by the mast as we tip over, things like that. So it was a bit of a violent situation with the wind. But I was so calm. I'm 14 years old, right? I hadn't yet practiced the martial arts, and I'm calm and just in flow. And I caught the eyes of my mother, and there was something I was able to communicate with my calmness, that it's going to be okay. We're all right. We're flowing with this. And I felt reassured. I don't know if she actually did, but there was at least that connection and that communication and that sense of being part of a larger flow, that if I don't fight it and if I can attune with it, it can actually bring me to a positive outcome. And I think that was the first time I sensed this potential of being in Syntony with even difficult dynamics. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, you were in the zone. Have you asked your mother later in life? Does she remember that? And
I haven't, although there's a chance she's tuning in now, but I can check with her. But no, yeah, you're right. I should go and see how that was, if she remembers too, right?
yeah. Well, we have a short slideshow, I think 10 slides. We are going to show them and discuss them just a bit. And then I have some questions for Alexander and a few of his beautiful quotes. He has promised he will play his flute for us the last 3 or 4 minutes. So I'm excited about everything that's going to go on in the next hour. And I'm thinking we are just a hair ahead, but we're going to go ahead and take a short commercial break now and get the slides up and see you soon for a very exciting and interesting exchange. This is Cynthia Clayton for Planetary Peace, Power, and Prosperity. And we'll see you in just 2 minutes.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them. Rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies. Find settings that allow them to be the most productive and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Well, welcome back. This is Cynthia Clayton and Alexander Laszlo on the Planetary Peace, Power, and Prosperity Show. And we have a very exciting but short presentation on the Syntony spheres. This will give you an accurate view of what they are and how you can participate in them. And when the slideshow is over, we're going to have some questions and a little more interaction. So I will let Alexander take it away. This is the Syntony spheres.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Cynthia. Well, what fun. So this is really, I hope that we can explore this together. I will make a few comments on some of the slides, and thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit what is alive in me. This is my quest. This is what brings me alive. And well, let's go to the next slide and see what these Syntony spheres are all about. They come from this idea of having to face what scientists call a VUCA, and the social scientists call a rupt world. So the VUCA world are situations or contexts that can be described as being volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And it's kind of like we're living more and more in this kind of a world now that has these characteristics. But these characteristics are not really what one experiences. One experiences a rupt world. And that's why the social scientists talk about the same thing in terms of experiences that are rapid, unpredictable, paradoxical, and tangled. And the thing is, how do we navigate? What's our compass of hope in a VUCA and rupt world? How do we get oriented when things are rapid, unpredictable, paradoxical, and tangled, both in our personal lives as well as in the world around us? So this is kind of where the idea of syntony and the need for developing and cultivating a syntony sense, and then the ability to dance with or be danced by the syntony dynamics. So Cynthia, is that good? Do you want to move or have your comment on this?
No, the next slide's fine.
Okay, let's go. So this is the word on syntony. So what is this? What is this concept? Let me explain a little bit what it's about. So if we start this, you'll see here on this slide, next, there we are, this image, which is kind of, you should get a sense that in the bottom lower left part is this kind of chaos and a VUCA world, right? Or a rupt world. And in the top right is this harmonious, balanced, dynamic, not just a rest in peace kind of situation of peace, but a dynamic, flowing peace, right? So if we go next, you'll see that these two domains, next again, you'll see that they comprise what in Chinese characters, danger and opportunity, are put together to represent this notion of crisis. Crisis is comprised of two characters in Chinese, which is danger and opportunity. But the point is that in crisis, there is both things, danger and opportunity. And that we have the opportunity, we have the power, really, to navigate between danger and opportunity. And not only that, but to transmute them. So next, you will see here that the action of syntony is to alchemize danger, next, into opportunity. This is really the syntony path. This is the evolutionary alchemy. And this is something that we can all do. Now, let's look here. It's a little bit small, but I'll read it to you. What is syntony? Here's the formal definition. In its most current sense, it is conscious intention aligned with evolutionary purpose, or the embodiment and manifestation of conscious evolution. Right? So we are conscious evolution. Another way of looking at this is that syntony is a purposeful, creative aligning and tuning with the evolutionary flows of one's milieu. Remember my story of standing on the boat in that little gale. That's part of being in syntony with the flows. Now, more technically, in evolutionary systems thinking, syntony can be defined as evolutionary consonance. I think that's the most concise definition of syntony: evolutionary consonance, or the occurrence and persistence of an evolutionarily tuned dynamic regime or systems state. So this is kind of more technical. Even more technically, you'll find this term in the dictionary, often in the unabridged dictionary, but under the notion of radio engineering. It means resonance, or the aligning of radio frequency emission patterns, right? But people like Teilhard de Chardin, people like Eric Jantsch, who was a systems scientist, he wrote the Design for Evolution and the Self-Evolving Universe, they use the concept of syntony as a way of expressing a type of evolutionary inquiry in which we are active agents in that evolutionary landscape, right? This is the manifestation of conscious evolution that we are, right? So taking on that mantle of an evolutionary co-creator. This is that path of syntony. What do you think, Cynthia?
I think it's wonderful.
All right, let's move
I
on.
love Syntony. I'm so excited about it. I'm sorry.
It's good. It's all good. So, this guy over here who's clearly having a bad hair day, he says here that the intuitive mind is a sacred gift and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. So in a way, this syntony quest, this quest after syntony, is a way of bringing back into engagement this intuitive mind, this sacred gift, that we lead with that. We sense what is emerging. And after that, we engage the rational mind. But our pseudopod, our reaching out into what is happening now and how is this going and where am I in the flow, this is the compass of hope. This, for me, is the path through the intuitive mind. And that's where syntony comes most alive.
One thing about Einstein, he also said imagination is more important than knowledge. And so when you bring up that we're going to be developing our intuitive mind, that's pretty important. But we wouldn't be in the messes we are if we'd done this a long time ago. But so we're going to be learning about deep listening and being receptive, working on our intuition. I like that quote.
Exactly, Cynthia. I've recently come across this distinction because in the last century, old paradigm conferences, we would have these keynote speakers, right? They'd come up there and they'd give presentations, a little bit like this. And everybody would be sitting there and listening. And often even, they would come and read their speech to you as if you couldn't read it yourself. How boring and how dead and how non-alive is that? The idea of having keynote listeners, I love that. How can we be keynote listeners? Because we tend to often be keynote speakers in our daily lives. We lecture other people, we mansplain, whatever, here, let me tell you how things are. But being a keynote listener in life is very much part of the syntony sense, the syntony ability. And this goes to this slide over here, where we're looking at what Buckminster Fuller says. He says, I am not a thing, a noun. I seem to be a verb. I love the way he says I seem. Let's look at his full quote here next. So here's what he actually says. He says, I live on earth at present. This is Buckminster Fuller, right? I live on earth at present, and I don't know what I am. I know I'm not a category. I'm not a thing, a noun. I seem to be a verb, an evolutionary process, an integral function of the universe. So let's hold here for a moment, because this idea of being an integral function of the universe, this is that aspect of flow when you are not a noun, when you're a verb. So my quest here, Cynthia, is really about how to human well. So I'm looking at the notion of the human, not as the human, the noun, but as the flow state of humaning. How do we human well from moment to moment? And how do we human well together? Because we're not separate and isolated. We truly are one breath, one expression of each moment together. Like right now, you and I are in this dance together, and what I'm saying and what I'm doing is so heavily influenced by you that I don't know where my boundaries of thought and of sensing end, because I know that a lot of what I'm thinking is thanks to what you are bringing forward and bringing up. So these flow states are all the time interpenetrating. This is part of recognizing that we're verbs, we're humaning.
Alexander, this is actually probably my favorite slide in the whole thing. I know a few of the ones we're going to get to in a minute will be very helpful for us. But when I first saw you bring this slide to my attention a week ago or whatever, I just felt so free when I realized, like, I'm a verb. You're a verb. Everyone's a verb. God's a verb. And when I realized, like, we're processes, we're processes, all things are processes, everything's vibrating and moving, you could get dizzy and it's kind of magical, but when I read this, it gave me such a sense of freedom. Uh, I don't know, it's just like I'm not stuck in time, space, and I can do things, I can be helpful. Um, just as a whole different feeling when you look at your life as a verb. So I'm glad you included this.
No, that's beautiful, Cynthia, because the idea, the flip side of being in this flow state is that VUCA or RUPT, right? The rapid, unpredictable, paradoxical, entangled. Everything's flowing, everything's moving at the same time. Where's my anchor? How do I want to have things under control? Well, we're going to get to that in just a moment here, because wow, the more you try to control these flow states, it's like trying to grasp water. You can't. The more you grasp at it, the more it's going to flow out of your hands. You can't do that. But you can cup your hands. You can make yourself available, and you can be filled by these flow states. So let's go ahead with the next slide and see a little bit what that's kind of poetical, but the way I like to look at it is in these dimensions of connection. And this is really the five Syntony spheres, right? So we look at these five dimensions in a couple of different ways. So the first idea is we're looking for personal balance, right? So my nutrition and my exercise and my sleeping patterns, and am I overly stressed or not? And do I have healthy relations with others? I mean, what kind of world am I living in? Do I take care of myself? That's my personal balance. That's the first sphere of Syntony. The second sphere is this communal balance. How are we in syntony with others? Aha. And then let's go to the next one also, quick here. So the third one moves us from the human domain into the living domain of the planet around us. Am I in balance with nature? And then the fourth domain is with our ancestors and future generations. So am I in balance with them, in good conversation? And the last one of these five dimensions is cosmos. Am I in balance with the bigger story of evolution? But I think we're going to go for a break now. So just wanted to check in. We're going to come back and repeat these in a moment in a different way. So you're going to get a chance to see these thoroughly.
Thank you, Alexander, for watching the time. And this is Bold Brave TV, Planetary Peace, Power, and Prosperity. We'll see you in a minute, and we're going to get into like the juicy slides now.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant, like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good. Whether
in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back. This is Cynthia Clayton for Planetary Peace, Power, and Prosperity with Dr. Alexander Laszlo, bringing us the scoop on Syntony. This is what we need for conscious creation, folks. So thank you, Alexander.
Oh, my pleasure. What fun. As we're exploring these Syntony spheres, we're starting off here. This is the slide we just ended up with, the 5 dimensions of connection. The personal balance, communal balance, environmental balance, and our balance with our ancestors and future generations, and then our spiritual balance. These are the 5 spheres. Let's break this down a little bit. If we go to the next slide, you're going to see these same 5 dimensions of connections expressed in terms of these Syntony spheres. So look, this first level that we talked about, that personal balance, this is what's called more technically intrapersonal Syntony. It's within ourselves, conviviality, this idea of being alive and fully empowered within ourselves. The second level is this interpersonal Syntony. If we do one more click, you'll see that this is about conviviality with others or collective thrivability. At the third level, and we'll pause here for a moment, at the third level we get to this trans-species Syntony. And this is where we go beyond the human domain, right? Because at the second level, the interpersonal, it was just about being in collective thrivability with other human beings. But the trans-species, we're now in conversation with. I have a good friend of mine, David Price, who writes about a dialogue. And this is the dialogue, kind of the sacred dialogue with nature, the dialogue with each other as well. And this is about ecosystemic thrivability, being in a healthy relationship with our living ecosystems and with all of nature around us. But these 3 levels are only now. They take place in this point in time. We can be in intrapersonal, interpersonal, trans-species Syntony now, all together. We get to the 4th level, as you'll see now. We go to transgenerational Syntony, and here we bring in our past and our future. This is about conviviality with ancestors and future generations, having thriving conversations with our ancestors. For some reason, here we are. I hope that wasn't a comment from our ancestors. I had a little technical problem there. I was booted off and back on, but I think it's my computer, which is struggling to keep up. But here we are. So this is the 4th level that brings us into conversation with our past and with our future generations of all beings, actually, not just of human beings, right? So how are we being good future ancestors as well? That's part of that level. And the last level, the pan-cosmic Syntony, is understanding that, as Carl Sagan pointed out, we are this blue dot in the cosmos. There's a much bigger narrative of evolution happening all around us. And that has brought into being, indeed, Gaia, our planet Earth. But we're part of a bigger narrative. How are we in touch with those bigger movements of being and becoming. This is really what can be thought of as a spiritual thrivability, because you're now tuning into or tapping into the pulse of evolution itself in the cosmos writ large. Make sense, Cynthia?
Perfect. Yes.
So here we have some of these guiding questions, right? We talked about this, Cynthia, that we have these guiding questions that can help us with the first and second. You might as well put the third one up as well. These first three levels, as I mentioned, can all be practiced at the same time. Actually, all 5 Syntony spheres can be practiced at the same time, but these all happen in the now. So at the first level, the personal Syntony, the questions are like this. Who am I and what's my life's purpose? What are my talents? To what do I feel called to contribute? What brings meaning to my life? What supports my personal development? These are things that help you come into personal balance, into personal Syntony, right? Dynamic balance. That's why it's Syntony. At the second level, this sociocultural Syntony with other people, the interpersonal Syntony, the kind of questions are, what common cares bring us together? What is our shared vision? Who are our partners and collaborators? What do we want to create together? What is our value proposition or unique contribution to all stakeholders? What affirms our values, identity, and culture? So you see, this is the human domain, right? Our values, identity, and culture. At the third level, we go to one higher or one broader sense of identity. This is identity with nature. This is ecological Syntony. We ask questions like, what gifts do we receive from nature that we have not acknowledged? What relationships and connections need to be restored? How can we contribute to the regeneration of our ecosystems? And what would a thriving relationship with nature look like? So these are the questions that help us come into these Syntony spheres, right? But all of these are done in the now. If we go to the next set, you'll see the ones that bring us into an even broader sense. The first level here, the fourth level of Syntony practice, or the fourth sphere, is evolutionary Syntony. And this is asking questions like, what would our ancestors think of our work and life? What would our children's children think of our choices? How do we honor our past and create our future intentionally? And at the fifth level, that broadest level, the transcendent Syntony, we ask, how do we connect with the deep dimension of cosmic consciousness? In what ways do we celebrate our relationship with the sacred? How do we become active and conscious participants in the unfolding of life with spirit? Right? Not just as biological engineers, but I mean, how do we do this in ways that, as Einstein asked us, bring in and honor intuition and our sense of spirit? Is this good, Cynthia?
You know, when I first saw these questions for self-reflection, I read through them. And now in looking at them, it's like, yes, this is going to take a lot of work, just these questions. But they're questions like Ron Friedman says, you make friends with them and just kind of hang out with them. So maybe your answers are not, they're traveling partners, these questions. But they will give you insight. You know, you always get that. But you need a journal. There's a lot to just reflecting on this right here.
That's so important, Cynthia, because the questions are much more important than the answers. The questions keep you on a path of exploration, and the answers are the ones which end those things. You know, in Spanish, the question is feminine, right? It's la pregunta in Spanish. I'm speaking to you here from Buenos Aires, Argentina. And la pregunta, and they say it's feminine because it's pregnant with possibility. That's beautiful. The idea of questions always having possibilities. They don't have yet the birth of an answer, and now you're done. So let's look at these presents and practices in terms of 5 principles. So this can help us ground ourselves. So these are the 5. We'll put them all up. And the idea is that we use all these five, just like you use the five Syntony spheres, those 5 levels that we just talked about. You try to practice these 5 practices or these 5 principles at the same time. Same with the Syntony spheres. So the first is that you engage with passion. Vibrant, intense, and compelling enthusiasm. This is just my definitions that I'm putting here, but this is notion of you're really engaged. It's not some kind of homework you're doing. You're doing this because you want to be in this flow of emergence, right? The second is this integrity, this kind of dignity and congruency with your values, this worthiness, honor, and respect. You're not trying to manipulate a situation, a person, or anything. You're in flow. The third is this balance, kind of like when I was on that boat, right? Holding the mast. It's just spin control and flow control, not of situations, but in them. You know, in the martial arts, we talk about learning mastery, but the mastery that you learn is not of other people. You're not masters either of a situation. You want to have self-mastery so that in any situation, you can land on your feet, so to speak, like a cat landing in balance. And that leads to this grace, this notion of simple elegance, presence, kindness, and a composed way of being. Indeed, when you use your intuition, you know that what's really leading you is almost an aesthetic sense, that this is yummy, this is delicious, this is a good place to flow. And that's that last part, flow. Tuning actions and attitudes to harmonize with your surroundings. That's that notion of being in flow. But it's one component of the Syntony sense. Cynthia?
Well, you talked a lot about flow. We maybe have an idea of that. This balance, I think everyone is feeling into the Syntony spheres right now, but they like put their foot in and it's like, oh, they pull it back out because they don't quite have balance. And I have a quote of yours I'm going to bring up in just a minute and ask you a little more about how we can stay in balance. So we'll take a very short break. This is Cynthia Clayton for Planetary Peace, Power, and Prosperity, bringing Dr. Laszlo and his wonderful idea of reality of Syntony. So we will see you soon.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them. We discover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back. This is Cynthia Clayton and Dr. Alexander Laszlo from Planetary Peace, Power, and Prosperity. And Alexander, do you have a quick tip for how we can keep our balance? in all of this. I know you use the word conviviality, which I Googled just to make sure. So it seems in our exploration, like being friendly with ourselves and open and welcoming, and be surprised, be okay with whatever it's there. So that's the only thing I thought of.
No, that's exactly it. You know, conviviality is this notion that Ivan Ilyich wrote about. It's as a kind of a disciplined way of being in a celebration of life with others around you, in not disciplined in a strict way, but in a way that actually has intention. You're not just whatever hanging out, but you're hanging out with ways that cultivate joy, cultivate deliciousness. And this kind, it's kind of like the anti-VUCA, right? The problems with the rupt world. This is the way of bringing in that medicine, this other ways of being, and it's dynamic balance. It's not the balance of standing on one leg, balanced, okay, I got my tree pose in yoga and I'm not going to fall over. That's a kind of balance, but we're talking about the kind of balance that involves moving over a changing landscape. It's evolutionary balance. Keeping your balance in the waves as you're surfing. It's that kind of balance that is in a changing landscape. That's the balance of Syntony, right?
Gotcha. The windsurfer deal.
Indeed.
Well, I want to read this quote because it is so beautiful, Alexander, and you might have a comment about it. So we're talking about integral syntony, which is when all 5 of the syntony spheres are aligned and we're like fully engaged in life. And you say, this is when you participate in the ensoulment of the cosmos and in the process become richly ensouled by it. And then you talk about dancing the sacred dance of being and becoming. And you say to dance the path of the ensouled universe is to be truly alive. Having a map of the new reality is one thing, knowing how to read it is another, and being able to bring it alive in all that you do, are, feel, think, express, relate to, and connect with. This is dancing the cosmos into being, while simultaneously being danced into being by the cosmos. This is Syntony. So I love that. I don't know if there's anything else to say about that, actually.
Well,
And
just to comment, Cynthia, that this is kind of Einstein also said. We're going back to this guy with the bad hair. He was saying, there are 2 ways of living your life, either as if nothing is a miracle or as if everything is a miracle, right? And, this idea, is our universe a sterile collection of atoms that bounce off each other in random arrays? Or, and really quantum physics is saying, no, it's not that. Or is this interconnected somehow, some kind of what we might think of in human terms as a spirit, something that is, there's an anima mundi, there's this sense of a cosmos that is alive. What does it mean to be alive? Well, how are we animated? How is the universe an anima mundi? What's the soul of the universe? Is there such a thing? And can we, whether we answer that question or not, it's not so important as trying to be in connection with that possibility of there being this. And the last thing I want to say on this is this notion that of learning how to dance. I once put that as, this is my objective. I want to learn to dance the dance of the cosmos. This murmurations of starlings that move as one in the air, flocking of birds, or fish that move together in polarized swimming groups. They're so beautiful, and I couldn't do that. We can't do that with our airplanes. We have to have a traffic control saying, okay, you're cleared on your left, and we can't be so close and such densities moving so quickly with each other. But we can learn this. This is the way the universe works. And for me, it's therefore not so much about learning to dance, how to move left and right, but learning how to be danced. Because believe me, those birds and those fish are not saying, okay, I'm going to now take 2 steps left, or I'm going to fly a little bit here, I'm going to fly. I'm going to do that. They're in a sense of oneness with the flows of the other birds around them or the other fish. And so this is something we need to train our sense, our Syntony sense of being in those flows with all, not just other people or other fish, but with all that is emerging around us, right? That is learning to be danced, not so much just to learn to dance. Because when you learn to dance, you're still trying, you're efforting. I'm going to dance. I'm going to make these steps. But when you're being danced, you're allowing yourself to be flowed, right? You're allowing yourself to be flowed. So that's the Syntony quest.
Oh, that is so perfect. Yes, let's just chill out, do what we can, do our best, love other people, do some good things every day. And, I think the universe has it under control. I just don't think we can see from the biggest point of view. But, anyways, this has been so wonderful. Alexander, such a good explanation of Syntony. And as promised, we would like a few minutes of your flute playing. But I'd like to tell you next week we have Constance DeAngelis, and she experienced culture wars sparked by a young woman's guardian who wanted to let the woman die. And she had been hooked up to feeding tubes for years. So a lot of you probably remember this, the Terry Schiavo case. I believe it's still going on. Constance was in that as a trial lawyer, a lot of death threats against medical and legal people. Anyways, she will be here next week on this show to tell us about that, her experience in that case. So we did it. And this last image, as Alexander will play us out, to me is so beautiful. It just expresses probably how David Bohm saw the universe. Uh, And so, yes, I think we'll just kind of focus on this. And thank you, everyone, once again. Don't hurry off. You have a few minutes to just chill out and enjoy. And we will see you back here next week on Planetary Peace, Power, and Prosperity.
Ashe. And thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Bold, Brave TV. And thank you for the program on peace, planetary prosperity. And I very much enjoyed this time of being able to be together and explore with you these dimensions, kind of the compass of hope that you have brought forth. I can't hear you. I don't know if others can hear you.
Sorry about that. I said it has been a great beginning of the afternoon. And I just think this concept we can grasp it, we can do it. Uh, I love Syntony. I'm signing in Syntony instead of blessings and peace or whatever. Let's all be in Syntony.
And anyone who wants to know more about this, please feel free to tune in to my website. It's Alexander Laszlo with no space. Remember, there's an SZLO in my name, so alexanderlaszlo.net. And there you will find more on Syntony, including, as Cynthia mentioned, a starter kit, a Syntony starter kit, which you'll find in the Dive Deeper section. So all that's there.
Yeah.
Thanks again.
Yes. read it all, waiting for the book to come out.
Working on it.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Be well.
You too. Bye-bye.
This has been Planetary Peace, Power, and Prosperity. Listen each week as 4 unique co-hosts, Dr. Janet Smith Warfield, Duncan McClintock, Angelica Christie, and Carolyn McGee will help to bring peace, power, and prosperity into your own life. Let's create, co-create, and manifest a peaceful, powerful, prosperous planet together and forever.